Hello. I would like to talk about the temperature of the food that you serve to your dog. So this is something I started working with this holistic vet that practices like a bit of Chinese medicine, also Western, but like a combination, which is great for me because I'm very much like, holistic approach and natural where possible, but I also understand science and that sometimes, antibiotics and steroids are necessary. So, it's a really good balance for me. But an interesting thing with Lulu recently, because her skin got really, really bad, and I started working with this vet, and I kind of made the mistake of doing about 5 different things at one time, and her skin has gotten remarkably better. But I'm not 100% sure which thing is most effective, or maybe it is just a combination of all of them. But one of the things the vet recommended to me was cooking Lulu's food. So, that's interesting. I never thought I would feed Lulu cooked food, being, obviously a raw food advocate. But she said for older dogs, it can be a little bit easier to digest. And I saw a post yesterday about warming food and it being easier to digest on Instagram, blah, 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 of another place that I follow, and I shared that and did a poll, and most people serve their dogs cold food straight from the fridge. Anyway, so it's something interesting I just want to talk about. So what I've started doing with Lulu, a few different things, but one of the different things was not cooking all her food. I do advocate for a raw diet, and I think that's most beneficial, but it does make sense that, feeding a dog cold raw meat can be harder to digest for their tummy, because their body's got to like warm it up a bit to digest it, so their body is working harder. It makes total sense. So what I do is I cook like half of Lulu's food, and so the boneless turkey chunks that we have are really good for this. I just boil them up in a big pot of water, which it's a bit gross, but boil them up in a big pot of water, and I also keep the water from that, and so then I don't cook the shit out of them, I just cook them gently, a little bit, still a little bit pink, and then I cut them into pieces and I keep them in the water. And what I do is I pour that liquid and the turkey chunks into Lulu's bowl and warm it up, and then I add her other raw food into that warm liquid. So it is a bit of a sloppy mess, but it's not cold, and half of it is cooked, and she's doing really well on that. The other thing, that's what I want to say, the increasing the moisture content in the food is really good for them as well. And I found that Lulu went from drinking like a fair bit of water, not an alarming amount, but she would go to her bowl, from what I knew, she'd go to her bowl each evening and have a really big long drink. And now, since I've been like serving that water, that meaty juicy water in with her meal, she's drinking a lot less, like barely anything, because she's getting so much moisture in her diet, which is good. And that's probably helping with the skin too, I imagine, I'm not sure. So that's really good, and she loves it. She's also on some Chinese herbs, so that was the other thing that she started, which is probably helping too. She is on steroids still at the moment, a really low dose, but she had to be on steroids to get that skin under control and the scratching, because it was very bad. And then the other thing that I've done, I changed her diet, and this is going back to the Chinese medicine and if you've heard of like the heating and cooling foods. So there are proteins that are considered like heating proteins and ones that are considered cooling. So she's a dog that carries a lot of heat, in her ears and her skin, and she's like a hot, itchy dog. So I was given like a recipe from the vet, and a whole bunch, like a chart of different cooling foods and which ones are heating foods. And interestingly enough, I was feeding her mostly kangaroo, thinking that would be the best for her allergy wise, but kangaroo is a heating protein. So I've changed her diet to mainly cooling proteins, which duck, turkey, and so I put a little bit of kangaroo in the mix and some novel proteins, I just find she does better when there's like a whole bunch of different proteins rather than all just one protein. I don't know if there's any science to that, it's just anecdotal for her. So, and along with the cooling proteins, I also include, I'll do a post about the different vegetables and herbs and things that are in her veggie mix as well, and fish oil and a bunch of different stuff. But yeah, I'm going to do some more posts going into more detail. But yeah, it's just interesting to learn about the heating and cooling proteins, and I thought about creating a meal that's like what I feed Lulu, basically, the cooling stuff. So it might be a good one for and you know, I'm not saying it's going to cure everything, you know, it's taken a lot to get this far with Lulu, and it might be that when she comes off the steroids she goes back to how she was, but all underneath she was losing fur, her skin was toughened, and it was growing all the way up her sides. It was really horrible, and now the fur's starting to grow back and her skin is not tough. Like it's so good. So yeah, I started a whole bunch of different things, but I'll keep doing it. I'll keep doing the cooked turkey with her raw mix and her cooling proteins, and yeah, heating her food a little bit just to make it easier to digest. And yeah, that's really all. Thanks.